On the 3rd of July 1892, Jose Rizal established the La Liga Filipina at the home of Doroteo Onghunco to call for political reforms to Spain. This was attended by the young Andres Bonifacio, who would launch the Katipunan 4 years later. By 1893, Governor General Eulogio Despujol ordered his arrest and exile to Dapitan. While Rizal had no contact with the world outside Dapitan, Bonifacio was brewing the revolution against the Spanish government. Without Rizal's knowledge, he had been made the Katipunan's honorary president, and members were accustomed to end speeches with, "Long live the Philippines! Long live liberty! Long live Dr. Rizal!" During his exile, Governor General Ramon Blanco, who took office in 1893, replaced Despujol and offered Rizal a chance to return to Spain and to later order his return to Luzon. But Rizal declined this offer. At this time, Rizal may have little idea of the political turn of events happening in the sister colony, Cuba, and its implication on the opportunity of a revolution in the Philippines. Rizal's friend Antonio Regidor found out that there was a shortage of military medics in the pandemic-stricken Cuba. Regidor immediately informed Blumentritt to persuade Rizal to volunteer. The main reason for this was to take Rizal out of his exile in Dapitan to apparently show his loyalty to the Spanish Empire. But his persuasion was hastened and strengthened after Rizal's meeting with Pio Valenzuela. Dr. Pio Valenzuela is one of the Katipunan leaders, a doctor by profession and the only ilustrado among them. He was Bonifacio's emissary who was tasked to persuade Rizal to get his support for the revolution that Bonifacio and his colleagues planned. He sailed to Mindanao on the pretext of bringing a blind servant for treatment. Rizal did not know Valenzuela either in person or in name. In the short consultation between Rizal and Dr. Pio, there was no certainty in which the short conversation between the two men was framed. Rizal stated that Dr. Pio informed him about the planned uprising and that the Katipunan were worried about him. Rizal counseled against the campaign, saying that it isn't the right time for a revolution. He also referenced the 10 Years' War in Cuba, that despite having resources and backing, they were still unable to achieve their desires. Rizal believed that the conditions to succeed are still unattained. It wasn't clear how much he knew of the events in Cuba in 1895 that would lead to Blumentritt's preconditions to be realized. Don Pio Valenzuela took his leave, persuaded by Rizal's rational arguments, since instead of taking part in the rebellion, he later on presented himself to the authorities and asked for pardon. What Pio Valenzuela told his comrades upon his return is unclear. Did he accurately report that Rizal's advice was to wait, or did he simply say that Rizal flatly refused to endorse Bonifacio's campaign? The latter is more likely, as Bonifacio was livid and called Rizal a coward. But in the end, the Katipunan leaders agreed to conceal the rejection because such was Rizal's prestige. When the revolution transpired after the discovery of the Katipunan, the Spanish authorities immediately launched a general inquiry to determine those involved. Governor General Blanco provided amnesty for people to bring information that might help in the investigation. Those who came out as informers issued statements that implicated Rizal. Rizal wrote Manifesto a Algunos Filipinos that called the revolution as highly absurd. It is clear that he was not involved in the Katipunan's revolutionary plans, nor did he sympathize with it. He denounced the insurrection, absolving himself of blame with regards to its development and speaking of his hopes for the Philippines, but the Spaniards ignored his disavowals and thus had him executed on the grounds of rebellion. Rizal's believers recognized that his death was because he wrote novels and essays that opened the eyes of his countrymen to the true state of affairs in their country, thus paved the way for a revolution. Rizal did not know Bonifacio personally, and Bonifacio perhaps listened to Rizal speak by chance. But when the Katipunan made Rizal its honorary president and ended its discussions with the cheer, "Long live Dr. Rizal," it may be because Elias and Simon and many others of the novel's figures of action now belonged to them. Novelists and novels had parted company. Jose Rizal was one thing and Dr. Rizal was another. The gap between these persona was perhaps what enraged Bonifacio on receiving Valenzuela's report. In the end, Rizal had dedicated his life to the task of enlightening the countrymen for the unchaining of the Spanish restraint. Consummatum est, as he said. His work is done. His death fueled nationalism among his countrymen.